Hey, so check this out. We are at Wachusett Meadows, which is really pretty. I've never been here before. It is a Audubon Society park, preserve. I don't know the right word, but anyway, it's one of those. And we're gonna hike from here over to Mount Wachusett, which is gonna be about a almost 7-mile round trip, but it's a beautiful day. It's ridiculously warm. I'm wearing a t-shirt for the first time in months. I'm not sure how I feel about it. And yeah, it should be really cool. There's a cool little old house thing. Anyway, it's really nice. And but we're going to the mountains, so we'll get going. I have hiked Wachusett a number of times before, but each time I took one of the many shorter ways up the mountain. Mount Wachusett is multi-use, so there are many ways to access it. So starting this far back was a change, but I was feeling a bit out of shape, having failed to get any hiking in for a couple of weeks over Easter. So I was also full of Easter candy, and we have plans to hike this spring. To Chapman Trail, which is our turn, going this way. Cute park bench. Wachusett Meadows actually was really nice, and I'll certainly go back again just to wander around. It was originally a farm, and now of course is a nature preserve, as is in the name. So I had to stop for a little while and recalibrate myself, get some water. I found that I was rushing a bit for no particular reason. I forgot my poles at the car, a little ways in after the field, the meadow, and in the woods a bit. So I had to turn around and go get them. It's a long-ish hike, not super long, but long enough. And I always hike with them. It's good for the knees. So I went back, but for some reason that got me rushing, and I didn't really need it. Honestly, sometimes when you do try to have a Sabbath walk, literally and metaphorically, you get sort of stuck in your head with other things. Today, even though, technically my day off, there's some work issues that I have to sort of monitor and worry about. None of them exactly my job, but definitely my business, if that makes sense. I think everybody who has a job knows what that's like. So, I'm sort of worried about that stuff. And it's hard to both use sort of the mellow, I'm out in the woods hiking and contemplating nature, Sabbath mode, and the work mode at the same time. So that's probably A, why I forgot my poles in the first place, and B, why I was running basically to catch up with myself. And at the risk of sounding very cheesy, I was already there. So I stowed my poles for the moment so I can eat a snack, which hopefully will help with the old mood change. And we can keep going here on this hike. So check this out. Sanctuary boundary. Recall we left our car at Wachusett Meadows. Up to here says Sanctuary boundary, Wachusett Mountain Summit, 5-mile round trip. That tells us about where we are. We've gone about 2 miles, give or take. I certainly did, because I went back to the car. And it's about 2.5 to the peak. And then you keep going up here, this one old sign, Mid-State Trail, Dickens boundary. Let's keep going. The Midstate Trail is one of the lesser-known long trails in New England. It starts at the Douglas State Forest on the Rhode Island border and ends just north of Mount Wachusett, where it overlaps and joins up with the Wapak Trail. Usually, this trail is done in sections, but I have done most of the northern part and have considered hiking both the Midstate and the Wapak in one go, if I can ever find the time. So this is about as good a spot as any, since we just passed the road where a lot of people start, and we're coming up under the giant windmill, which is unobtrusive, really. I mean, you do notice, you're like, wow, it's a giant windmill, but you can just sort of hear the sound of the wind, but it's not that bad. But all I wanted to say was, there are people coming, is that the top of Mount Wachusett can be a little bit disappointing. It's not really all that bad. It's just that Wachusett doubles as the local ski mountain. And when this happens, as it does on Cannon and Tecumseh in New Hampshire, everyone needs to compromise. In the case of this mountain, that means accepting the fact of a parking lot at the top. Still, it isn't as bad as getting to the top of Mount Washington and dealing with the crowds that arrive by car or train. Well, it started to be something now. It got steep a little bit a minute ago, and now, see that? I don't know how well it's going to translate into the video, but we're basically making our final push to the summit. It's been uphill all the way, but super gradual, which is a nice thing about this trail. If it's longer, right? Woodpecker. If it's longer, the trail, often it's not as steep, but there's always a steep bit at the end, and that's what we're going to do now. So this is a fun map. You see the big arrow where we are here, but it shows basically where, way down here in the corner, where all those signs were saying that we were leaving the Wachusett Meadows Sanctuary, where we put the car. It's a sanctuary, as it turns out, on the Dickens Trail, which is nice. And then it crosses the street, that big street where people parked, and became the Harrington Trail, and that's where the cars were. The windmill is right here. Actually have it on the map. And then we're all the way up to here, and we only have this little bit left. The stuff up here are ski trails. And this, of course, this dark line is that road that we keep crossing. So, you know. But we're almost there, which is great because I could use a long rest. Yep, here's the top. Parking lot, road, radio towers. There's an observation tower over there, which we'll go check. Wachusett is another one of those mountains that Henry David Thoreau liked to hike from time to time. He actually referred to it as the observatory of the state, which always sounds pretty cool. He also wrote a fairly long poem about it. As with a lot of transcendentalist poetry, it's a bit long and a bit overwrought, but some of it's quite good, particularly this part. But special I remember thee, Wachusett, who like me standeth alone without society. Thy far blue eye, a remnant of the sky, seen through the clearing or the gorge or from the windows on the forge, doth leaven all it passes by. Nothing is true, but stands twain me and you, thou western pioneer, who know'st not shame nor fear, by venturous spirit driven under eaves of heaven, and canst expand thee there, and breathe enough of air. Upholding heaven, holding down earth, thy pastime from thy birth, not steadied by the one nor leaning on the other. May I approve myself, thy worthy brother. So I really shouldn't have worried about the crowds. There's a few people, but everyone walked. The only two trucks up here are for people who are working either on the fire tower or for the park. It's nice. It's kind of funny. I always feel like the top up here feels a little bit like a beach without an ocean. I think it might be the parking lot and sort of a light dusting of amenities. And there's always this wind too, which is quite a thing. But yeah, it's been lovely. I've sat around here for a little while, did a little bit of work, made some phone calls. You know, the thing I was worried about turned out to not be that big a deal. So, you know, it's all better now and I can head on down. I will say two things, which I managed, and one thing that I didn't. I managed to remember to bring sunscreen and bug dope in the switch over from the winter packing to the summer. I guess it's more summer than anything else, but summer, spring packing, sunscreen and bug dope. I wish I brought a hat and not a cap either, like a big floppy hat. I used to have one. I got to get another one. So that's the thing I forgot. But otherwise good. I think I carried my spikes all the way up here because in New Hampshire there's still snow. So when you go up there, you need them. But yeah, so it was good. And so I'm going to go find our trailhead and head back on down. So this hike wasn't really about getting to the top anyway. It's about the journey there. You could say that about a lot of mountains, actually. Moving slow and noticing the small hints of spring is what made this trip worthwhile. By the end of the hike, I was actually a bit of a wreck. I had misjudged the heat and the weight of my pack. But I will be back to hike it again, no doubt, but probably with more water.